Hi everyone, here is another session in developing an OpenAI.NET library for the .NET community and the standard community. The library is test-driven, standardized, and also pair-programmed. It's a whole community engagement to build together something that we can actually be proud of, something that's actually solid, that you can build more and more things on top of it without having to worry about, a test case that is not taken care of, or an edge case that you're not aware of. The library is very clean and you can maintain and contribute to it as much as you can. And as usual, I'm joined by my favorite people, Brian and Elbic. How are you guys doing?
We're good, thank you.
Good to see you guys.
Good.
So let's first, before we today we're gonna be basically wrapping things up, right? We need to build the clients. We need a completion client, which is so much easier. The business logic is where the brains is. You need to write unit tests. You need to kind of think about the scenarios and all that. And look how amazing this community is. The As we're developing real life projects that we want to use, we are updating the tools that we're working with. Like RESTful Sense already got a couple of rotations and upgrades just by going through scenarios. And that's why the tooling that we build is solid, because it's not coming from, just, sitting there and saying, I want to make things better. No, it's coming from a real need. It's coming from a real kind of requirement, to kind of get something done in real life. Hey, Mabruk, nice to see you. One of these days, you're going to have to join us, Mabruk. You know what I mean? So let's just go through something. One of the, I've seen, Elbic, the Uzbek community, and even people from outside of the community, they've been kind of amazing. They contributed a lot. I just opened up the repository and found like 11 open pull requests, and a lot of good things going on there. I want to point out a couple of things, right? Because I saw some people, there was a commit that happened there that I may or may not have kind of allowed in, without fully understanding the dependabot, the dependabot. The problem with dependabot goes and says, hey, I'm going to keep everything for you up to date. So the pipeline, all the little details, libraries missing, you can update libraries and all that kind of stuff. And then literally 2 hours later, I had to revert that pull request. I had to go and just kind of flip it back. Why is that? I started to notice that Dependabot is doing something funny. It goes and it updates the tasks of GitHub. You see action checkout v3? What's the problem with that? Can any of you just tell me, like, why is this a problem? The obvious
For
thing
me,
here, go
yeah,
ahead.
for
Go
me,
ahead.
it's just a magic.
That's
Something
one
is
part.
happening underneath, but we don't know. We might
It
not
could
be aware of everything. Yeah.
Right, it could break something, and you
Yeah.
have no idea, right? So that's
Hmm.
number one. Number two, now our GitHub .NET YAML is completely separate and completely different from our C
Yeah.
sharp code. So the stuff that we did with A.NET is now completely separate and different from what this is doing. And this is why, again, there's a big principle in the standard that says no toasters. No toasters. Because you're going to automate. That's what a lot of engineers do. They say, oh, let's automate this, right? And then the next generation of engineers, the next group of engineers come in and they have no idea what's happening underneath, right? And now you're stuck. There is a level to it. There is a level for automation, but this kind of automation, I'm not gonna accept in this project. So I'm gonna have to reject that one. And my apologies for the person that submitted that. I know you're trying to improve the library, but we also have certain standards and guidelines that we want to carry, to make sure that this code here actually reflect that. And you'll see, like, I'm okay with you going and saying, let me go develop a new model and let me call it V2 or V3, right? Like if you want to contribute directly to A.NET and make it V2 or V3, I'm cool with that. But if you're going to put something that's doing magic underneath and updating libraries, that's going to be a little bit of a problem. Okay? So with that being said, I went through a lot of these pull requests. I really appreciate people contributions. I closed a lot of them. I kind of merged a lot of them. I rejected some of them, and basically I left comments on the ones that are open right now. So for our community, if you're really interested and you want to kind of, see what's going on, go ahead. I even also pushed my own. I noticed that we had some misspellings here and there, so I kind of went ahead and fixed it. I also noticed that, our unit tests, it had foundations, but it didn't have services in it. So I had to add that one as well. So just really, really quick, tiny things. It shows how much, we really care about what we're building. And, I mean, one way or another, like anybody can build a library on top of OpenAI. But, what does this library look like? How it's built, the process of getting there. That's what this is all about. Otherwise, we wouldn't even be doing any of these streams. It's not worth it, right? So, okay, with that being said, what are we doing today? We need to build clients, right? Exposure layers, right? So I'm just gonna go ahead in here. So this service that we built, this amazing completion service that we built here, I think it's in a good state. I think it's very clean. I'm looking at our code and the stuff that we're doing. I'm really, really happy with the stuff that we're doing here. I'm looking at this business logic here. It has 14 tests that covers all the possibilities that we can think of. I know we kind of threw a bunch of tasks on the side just before this stream. I was just talking to Brian Parker, and he told me, "Hey, I'm working on RESTful Sense, so we can kind of mitigate the issue with having default values." So once that's released, we're gonna incorporate that back in, and we're continue to grow and evolve this way. Now we need an exposure layer just to bring everyone, and especially for the people who haven't, been following us from the beginning. I want to kind of, bring people back into focus and where are we, and what things are supposed to look like. Brian, did you want to add something before I do this?
No, I'm good.
Okay, good. Okay, so back to the draw board. Let's back to draw IO. A lot of people have asked me, what are you using? What is this thing? Well, it's draw IO. It's a really cool system. So far, we finished this and we finished this. So we built the OpenAI broker, which is the completion OpenAI broker, and then we built the completion service. We need a client, and that client is the guy that's going to give us access, to that service. Why is that client important? Why can't we just use the service directly? Well, the client in and of itself plays as an exposure layer that, communicates and maps some responses and maps some exceptions, in a certain way. And your service itself should not be the last point of contact, because sometimes you want to put a RESTful API in front of it. Sometimes you want to put a gRPC protocol in front of it. Sometimes you want to hook a UI component in front of it. We're going to do a lot of that stuff. We're going to keep playing with AI for the rest of this year and for many, many years to come, until, someone just comes in and, makes everything automated. And then we're going to find something else to kind of fight the machines. Like I was always telling people, software engineers are never going to run out of jobs, because when AI takes over the world and turn evil, we're going to be the ones that kind of take it down. So it's gonna it's gonna be, we're always gonna have a job. We're gonna be vigilantes, kind of trying to take down the crazy machine that's, going crazy. So okay, worst case scenario, of course. I'm hoping that, that never happens, and, it actually continues to continue, because I know that the OpenAI team, they continue to say this. It's just a tool. It's there to help you. It's not there to replace you. But we all know what happened to horses when cars, happened. Nobody's riding horses anymore. We all know what happened to, a lot of things that people used to use. Like you don't have people that, what was it, Brian? Oh my God, there was yeah, the people that used to connect the calls. So just for the people that are not
Oper-
aware,
operators,
the
they were called.
operator, the
Yeah.
operator. So today you're just dialing a number on your phone and you're calling, and it connects you directly. So if I'm calling Elbic, it'll just connect me to Elbic directly. A long time ago, there was actually a person sitting in a room, and when you pick up the phone, you're just calling that person directly, and they pick up the phone and say, "Who do you want to talk to?" And you had to be nice to them, because they actually pull, cords or wires and stick them into other sockets so they can connect you with another call. So that person, that job doesn't exist anymore. It's gone. It's all gone for automation, right? So when people say, "Oh, it's not gonna take our jobs," and stuff like that, looking at history and time, yeah, very much so. It will come in and clean up a lot of things. One other thing before we start writing code, that I saw, someone raised a lawsuit against OpenAI or ChatGPT, because it kind of generated a legal document, and it's not supposed to, because it's not qualified for something like that, something to that effect. There's a lot of these hilarious
Hang,
things that are happening
hang,
all over
hang
the
on.
world.
Didn't it pass the test?
It did, but I don't know. Like lawyers, they have their own way. Like let's chat GPT lawsuit. Look, so news, reading, visual, jaw
I heard,
dropping.
I
Mhm.
heard 3.5 passed in the lower 10% and 4 passed in the top 10%.
I don't know. I saw it somewhere. Someone talked about, attorney. I really want to bring it up so just people see. There's gonna be a lot of hilarious thing. Class action unauthorized practice of law suit against lawyer bot. So someone took ChatGPT, they made a lawyer bot, and then, there's a lawsuit, to kind of say, hey, you're practicing law, without actually being, I don't know, a human being, something like that. But anyway, there's a lot of these funny things that are kind of happening all over the place. There's now a service that generates vows for you. So you generate vows, so people don't have to write vows for each other to get married. It's just happening, that it just generates it for you.
Sounds very personal.
That sounds very, very personal. Hey Kay, how are you doing?
Good.
Okay, good. Nice to see you. So what are we gonna do today? We need to build this completions client, the thing that will actually interact with the outside world, and how that's going to look like. And expect this in our segments moving onwards. We're going to look at what's happening in the world today, like a quick view on like news, what's happening with Chat GPT, new inventions, funny stories. We're going to write some code, and then we all going to go home and split ways. Make it a little bit fun. That's how I work. You like it, like it. You don't like it, I'm the manager. Complain. Go complain for it. Anyway, so nobody's anybody's manager here. I'm just joking around. Okay, let's do this. So I'm just gonna create a new pull request. Sorry, a new branch. So let's go and do this. This is gonna be quite interesting because um, unlike ASP.NET controllers and APIs, this is gonna be more around, the idea of creating um, Kailu, I'm gonna pull in the PC stream when you start coding, okay? Cool?
Okay. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. So, okay. All right. I'm creating the branch here. So users, you guys can't see this. I don't know why StreamYard doesn't. Clients and then completions and then prompt. Okay. So instead of controllers, it's clients, but it falls within the tri-nature theory of everything, so we should be okay. And then I'm gonna write in here clients. Oh, it looks like we already have clients in there. Okay, cool. Let me delete that. Brian and I added a bunch of clients earlier. So, sorry, a bunch of folders area. So here's clients right here. So under clients, I'm just gonna type in completions, right? And then under completions, I'm just gonna go here and create this class. I'm gonna call it completions client. So far, so good. No problem there. Do we test drive clients or exposure layers, Elbic? What do you think? Do we test drive that stuff? Why? You don't
No,
like to?
no,
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 no. Why? Why?
because we might change our clients at some point of time, so we
It's
don't be we
disposable. We don't care about it,
yes,
right? Yeah,
yes.
it's disposable. Someone a while back proposed this, and I can't wait for the next kind of standard community discussion to talk about this. Clients do somewhat some business logic, but um, it's an interesting issue. We had this colleague, she was working with us on some of these projects, and they said, there's nothing today in your code base that can catch, and I'm kind of shooting myself in the foot there because, a lot of people be like, well, we thought we're building, world class. Yeah, well, there's no such a thing as world class. It's just for a period of time, and if you're not evolving, you become legacy so fast. As I always say, your code becomes legacy as soon as it hits production or as soon as it gets merged to main. It's legacy code, right? But what she said is there's nothing today in our tests that can bark at us if if we change the exception handling or remove it completely. Like if you have an API controller, right? And your API controller is handling, not found exception or validation exception. Neither your acceptance tests are testing that, neither your integration tests are testing that, and you're not writing unit tests for your exposure layer. Okay, so Wardy, Christo, everyone here in this channel, be aware because this is a discussion that's coming very, very soon, right? I'm not ashamed or I don't have any issue kind of showing the issues with the standard because that's how we grow. The first step into solving a problem is to recognize that there is one in the first place. And that's the problem that we have in the first place is that we're pointing out our weaknesses and we're working around making them work. Okay, does the completions client needs an interface? Here's an interesting question for the group.
Hmm. I see your point. You're talking about whether, if we end up changing our client from Azure to OpenAI or to somewhere else, maybe.
So two reasons. That's a good point. That's not even what I was thinking about, but that's a great point, Brian. But also, I don't want the end user to have access to this at all. This will be instantiated through the OpenAI client. And all that they would see is an interface, but there's no concrete class for it because I don't want them to try to inject services in here because they won't have access to this anyway. Let's build an interface for this guy. So here's an interface. So this is iCompletion client. I'm hogging the keyboard because this is the first time we do this together, so bear with me. So this is value task, completion, prompt, completion, async, and here's your completion, and that's a completion right there. That's what's going to be public and exposed. We have to. There's no way around it. The rest of this is different. Okay. All right. Let's go back to this guy. So if I put this as an interface, and I do an implementation, it should give me that nice guy here. So far, so good. I'm going to go here and say return await this dot completion service dot prompt async, and here's your completion.
Hassan, should that be internal? Like we don't want people calling it directly from a concrete class?
What, the prompt?
They won't be able to get access to it. I'm sorry. Yep. I was thinking the actual function should be internal, but it doesn't need to be. No, because the whole class is internal.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So there's that guy. Now the other thing is that we want something that converts, the exceptions that we're receiving from the service into public exceptions. Okay, so that basically means under the models, and we should have had like services under the models because this is different in its own way. Here's clients, here's completions, and under this guy, I'm gonna create something called exceptions. And under exceptions, we will just have a completion validation exception, completion client validation exception. And we need to have completion client dependency exception. And we're going to have completion client service exception. These are the only three that we have. Now, for each and every one of these, it's going to inherit from exception. So there's a CTOR. It's going to take in an exception as a parameter. And we're gonna go ahead and say here, this is the equivalent of the message that we communicate from an API endpoint, right? This is what we actually communicate there. So this is a completion validation error occurred.
So let me ask you this. This is the equivalent of the, for example, internal server error and bad
Yes,
request. Okay.
exactly. But this is a library. It doesn't communicate any errors, right? So it doesn't know that.
Yeah. Yeah. So we are making our own.
Exactly.
All right.
Okay, so that's one. And then something very similar to that. So I'm going to go here and say, wait, I got the dependency. Okay, completion dependency. Error occurred, contact support. There you go. And then in here, something very similar to that. So this is the client exception. So there's an exception. And this is the very first time I do something like this ever in a video in public, recorded or streamed. So pay attention because we're revealing this as we go. So base message, and this is completion client service error occurred, contact support. Here you go, and that's your inner exception. Okay. Control KE again, clean that up, and then go ahead and pull that guy in. The last one is the validation exception. Oops, careful here. Here's this guy. And this is us basically saying, again, inherit from exception. CTOR, give me the inner exception right here, and then base message completion client validation error occurred. Fix errors and try again. Fix errors and try again. Okay, so we have all these exceptions. That's great. Now we need to map all the exceptions that are coming from the service into these. So let's do that. Let's go up in here. All right. Let's see here. Let's do a try catch. Move this guy upstairs. Control KE. This is all done. And then also I'm going to go here and say, let me take all that stuff out of the way so people can just see what's happening. So the first one we're going to kind of catch is completion validation exception. That's this guy. Right? And in here, we're basically going and saying throw new completion client validation exception. So that's your completion validation exception dot inner exception. So we're basically communicating the inner exception that is coming from there. So that's exception right there. The next one is completion dependency validation exception. I like that it knows that I'm misspelling things and it just fixes it for me. That's fantastic. And then something very similar to that as well. So that's also good. So that takes guy in here and we're done. And then catch completion client dependency exception. Nope, completion dependency exception. Right, so that's this guy. Throw new completion client dependency exception. Completion dependency exception, inner exception as exception. So that's also done. And then the very last one is completion service exception. And this completion service exception, there you go. That guy knows completion client service exception, and then take that and we're done. So that wraps up this service. So now the person that's consuming this will be able to go and say, okay, give me this, if this exception happens, give me that inner message, which we talked about. Oh, you're using excessive API calls. Oh, these components are not valid. All the little, exceptions that we created along the way. And we're gonna test those soon. We're gonna try these out.
So people watching might be having a question. So what if we just do not handle any exceptions in here, just throw whatever comes from the services?
Then if you change the service underneath, now you broke all your clients upstairs. Like let's say one day we
Oh,
basically,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
There's a reason we have this exposure layer. It's truly abstracting the inside from the outside, right? Just to kind of visualize this for the people, because I know, you know, Elbik, you, Kailu, Brian will catch this right away. But that's because you've been talking to me for a while. But the reason why we have a service sitting here, right? Let's say I have service X sitting in here, right? Why do I put this thin layer of a client up front in here? This is client X. And this client X has its own models, it has its own party going on for it. Is because if one day the customer already integrated and built around this client, right? If I go underneath here, just like microservices architecture, if I go and say, hey, I want to have two in here, and I want to have an orchestration service sitting here, nothing changes for your client. You still honor the very same contract. Because all that your client knows about the consumer, you know, all that it knows about is what? It knows about the models that are specific to your client. That's all it knows about.
Mhm.
You see the point?
Yeah.
Good question, though. Okay, let's go back here. Let's get this done with. This is gonna be the quickest session, though, because um, there's no testing. The testing happens with the clients after the fact. So we need acceptance and integration test, which is gonna be a session on its own. We're gonna have a lot of fun with it. But we have that. So okay, so this is the client. You know, we basically injected the iCompletion service. We're calling the iCompletion service. It's gonna throw some exceptions, and then we're gonna handle these exceptions, and we're done. Okay. Some people suggested doing the try catch thing in there, but we don't expect more than one line of code to happen here. So this becomes fundamental to your mapping, just like the controllers. Okay, so I'm just gonna go ahead and create clients. Elbik, do I have an issue opened for completion client? I should. So if I do hash like this, it should find stuff for me. Yeah, there you go. Clients completion client right there. How beautiful is that? So I can
Wow.
just go here and say close is. That's pretty cool, huh? So
I
let's
didn't know that.
save and commit, and let's create a pull request for this. That's the beauty of pair programming, man. Brian, if you're saying something, you're on mute.
I was. You can click on that little hash icon as well.
Yes, that's right. That's right. Let's go back here. Here's our completion client, closes. So that's this guy, okay? So I'm gonna merge this in just for the time of this session. Ideally, don't do that. Wait for the build, but I already had a build for it, so we should be good. Now we need to go back into the solution, and we need to build the next step. And the next step is super, super important. This is the equivalent of program CS or startup CS. But this is a library, right? This brings us back all the way back to the second session where Brian and I were talking about dependency injection and all that fun stuff that we were talking about. Let's go up in here and do this. This is still an exposure layer, but it's a different kind of exposure layer. Let's go ahead and go to main here real quick. Let's do a sync. Come on. Sorry, it's taking a minute. Here we go. And I'm gonna create a new branch. So there's users, Hassan, Habib / clients, OpenAI init. So I'm initializing the OpenAI client, which is the last one that we will be working with. And then in the see, we're going full circle here because we started with OpenAIs and we're gonna stop and end with OpenAI. So everything that's in between is inner stuff that's working for us. So this is OpenAIs. right? And then inside that guy, I'm going to create OpenAI client. I'm just going to call it OpenAI. Okay. Do we need an interface for this one? Anyone can tell me? Do we need an interface for this one? What do you guys think? Should we?
No.
Should we not? No? Okay. Why not?
Because this is your final exposure layer, isn't it?
So ideally, we shouldn't. If I'm building any other library, we shouldn't, right? But for the people who don't necessarily follow the standard and they don't build brokers, I want to give them an interface that they can mock, even though I don't agree with their style of doing things. So have you ever tried to mock something, but there's no interface to it, to the library? And you're like, that's gonna be a pain, you know? But if I just go like this and say, no, actually, I'm gonna give you an interface. This is OpenAI, like this. You know, that should probably make things a little bit easier. Okay, I don't know how I'm gonna do it. Don't get me wrong, I have no idea how I'm gonna do it, but we're gonna do it. Okay. So here's that guy, OpenAI, like this. I OpenAI. So okay, this guy is gonna be different. This is the equivalent of program CS and ASP. And you better listen up because you won't see this anywhere. This is all coming from up here. So you better listen up really close to see what I'm doing here. So I'm creating a property and I'm calling it I completion client. And I'm gonna call it completions. Because later on, when I'm using this, like if I go here and say public class X, doesn't matter what it is, and I say, you know, I don't know, let's just do, you know, void foo, I want to be able to go and say var OpenAI equal new OpenAI like this, and then I can go and say OpenAI dot completions dot prompt async. See how beautiful this is gonna look?
Mm-hmm.
It's gonna be pretty, very, very pretty. And we can branch and branch and branch out because that's still your, think about this OpenAI, the equivalent of the base URL of an API that you're calling. That's the base URL. And then you have slash completions, slash, you know, images, slash chats, whatever you want to do after that. Just like we talked last time, right? Let's throw that away. So this completion, but this guy needs to be initialized. Like in order for us to enable this, we need to not just initialize it, but we need to initialize every single dependency underneath it. Lucky for us, it's just the OpenAI broker. And we also need to initialize the configuration for this. So here's an argument for the team. Do we go and do this? Here's a suggestion. Do we force people to pass in configurations, OpenAI configurations? What did I call it, Brian? We did it together a long time ago. API configurations. Do we go and say API configurations like this? And they have to pass that in? Or do we tell people, nope, I just want from you API key string organization ID string the what is it, the URL, base URL. Which one and why? Ideas, suggestions?
I'd be tempted to go with both.
You want to create both? Okay, Elvic, okay, ideas?
Yeah, the first
I-
one is simpler.
I don't
First-
like the first one.
You don't like the first one?
I don't like the first one.
Because in the future, if we decide to add more properties, we're going to keep adding like this,
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
right? But if you add a model and you change your model and you produce a new version and a release, it will be a lot easier, right? So here's a rule. If your method goes over 3 input parameters, you may as well just create a model for it. In this case, I'm going to honor the API configurations, but we need to give it a better name, like OpenAI API configurations. But it's a very long name. But it needs to be really, really, yeah, there you go, Sean. Welcome, Sean. Sean is saying API configurations for sure, right? So let's go with this route. Let's see the people that can compile with their brains without actually looking at the error message. Can anyone tell me why this is red? I'm going to go up in here and do a peek. And let's see peak definition. Why is this complaining?
It's internal and it's used in a public
Exactly.
method.
There you go. Sometimes you gotta kind of, you have calculators, but sometimes you just gotta use your brain. Brooke says, that's what I wanted to say, Hassan. Think about the improvement of the library. Exactly. Okay. So we have this API configuration that's gonna be passed in, but we need to register it. We need to register it so the broker can get it, right? So let's go back to what we talked about super early. We need to bring in a library in here, Microsoft Dependency Injection Library. Dependency injection, and it's this little guy here, Microsoft Extensions Dependency Injection. And like I said to you, this library here is like the equivalent of Startup CS. So what we're really doing in here is that we're basically going and saying all the services that we have, we need to register in this guy. Now I hope I remember the, so there's a thing called builder, and then there is host, right? And you get the host from extensions hosting. I thought it would come in for free outside of the box. And then you create default builder like this. And then this builder, I wrote biller. Okay, builder dot, right? And then you say build. So what does that give you back? It gives you back a host. So this is var host. I'll fix the types in a second. I'm pretty sure a couple of people are like, what are you doing? And then we need to, well, in the builder itself, we can register, right? So builder dot register, let's see here. Yeah, that's right. Configure services. Configure services, right? And here is the configuration. I think it's called options or something like that. We'll come to that in a second. Configuration dot look add transient. So this is OpenAI broker. Registers to OpenAI broker. Look what I'm doing here. Just like ASP.NET. Just like how you're registering your API. The same thing needs to happen here. Configuration.add transient. completion service. Which will go back to completion service. Like this. What else? Is that all?
Well, if we want to take on board, we might need the HTTP client factory, the factory for the HTTP client.
We will. We will.
Mm-hmm.
We will. What else do we need to register here? We need to register
the options, yes.
API configuration, right? Which is the one that's coming for us from here. Right? Is there anything else that we need to register? I think that's all. Am I right? Am I wrong? What about this guy? Right? We need to register this guy too, right? So I'm gonna go here and say configuration dot add transient completion client and we're gonna pull that guy in a second. No, you're not doing ASP.NET. There's no ASP.NET. But yeah, we will need to do something very similar to that in a second. Okay, so that's our host. That's everything we have. Now, the new thing that we need to do here is that we need to initialize all of these properties. So completion, watch this, completion equals host services get required service iCompletion client. Let's clean this up a little bit. Register services, right? And in here, I'm gonna go and say initialize clients. Questions?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
had questions. So this is what we are doing for completions. Whenever we add chats or
you're gonna keep
insert.
adding like this.
Oh,
And then
okay.
you're gonna keep adding like this.
Yeah. hmm So this file will be getting bigger every
It's
time.
your start. Yeah, it's your startup CS.
All right.
What is it called, Brian? A container, a container, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why is this guy complaining? Configuration, spelling name, configuration. There you go. I love it. I love it. I'll never spell things right. Now, the only thing I don't remember is whether we need to. Okay, well, this builder is iHost builder. Well, let's fix this first because you need to be specific. If the right side is not clear about what the type is, you need to kind of say what the type is. And I think that's called build that returns what? It returns an iHost. iHost like this, right? And I don't know if you still need to do host.run or something like that. Maybe. I don't remember. I don't remember honestly, but we'll see. We'll find out really, really soon. Okay. All right. So I have all this in place. Now the only thing that's left for us to do is actually just to try the damn thing. Right. I also want to enforce something here that's really important. We still need to find a way around saying the default for this is HTTPS. What is the URL, Brian? Is it api.openai v1?
Not on the top, not off the top of my head. Just give me 2 seconds. Let's look it up.
Okay. We also need to figure out a way around this. Okay. That's the client. Let's test it out. Let's see if that actually works. Let's just find any test. Literally, it doesn't matter. And I'm just gonna go up in here and say fact public async task should run completion like this. And then here is a really just us setting up things. This is just a dummy thing. We're really trying things. So OpenAI equal new OpenAI. Come on. I need to add the dependency, right? So OpenAI.net. So here's OpenAI. Come on, come on. Is it public? Yeah, it is public. OpenAI right there. The term might be also overloaded. That's right. So OpenAI.net clients. We gotta need to find a way around this as well. OpenAI like this, right? And now this guy takes a configuration. So OpenAI configuration equal new API configurations. Here you go. And then I'm gonna add an API key in here. I'm gonna add an API. I'm not gonna add an API URL just to test it. And then I'm gonna add an organization ID in here. Okay, and then I'm gonna pass this in here. Let's just see how usable our library really is, right? I'll clean this up
I dropped that base URL in private chat.
in the private chat. So OpenAI, so api.openai.com. Good, good. And then Mabruk says, all what you need is Microsoft extensions, events, abstractions, and don't care about how and where your user will initialize your library. All right, we'll go through that in a second. we can totally do, but I don't want my customer to do that. So we're gonna have to change the name of this, like OpenAI client or something. We'll see. Okay, OpenAI dot completions dot prompt completion async, and then I'm gonna add in a new completion in here, and then we're gonna pass in some stuff. So here's my request, new completion request, and inside that guy, I want to basically go and say my prompt equals new string and human hello, and maybe AI the answer that you're expecting to complete from this guy. And this here is my result, completion result. So this is await OpenAI completion result. Let's pull that down a little bit. Let's push that a little bit forward in here. And then at the very end here, I want to just see, you know, that the results are not null. And then we're gonna kind of inspect, because this is a method that we're gonna throw away. So what's left? I need to put in an API key. So let me go generate a quick API key here real quick, and then submit.
There's a required property of method, I believe.
Oh yeah, that's right. Model, you mean?
Yeah, model. Sorry, you're right.
DaVinci, what is it? DaVinci text 3 or V3 text or something like that?
Yeah, I think it's text DaVinci something 003.
We need a struct for this guy. We really do. Because I don't want people to kind of type this by hand. It's like the experience is not the best. If we're gonna have people typing this by hand, it's gonna be really, really a tough experience for them.
Text dash DaVinci dash 003.
Like this?
Yes.
Okay, we can fix this really quick, and so people don't have to remember that stuff. Okay, let's see. So let me clean up some. I'm revoking some keys that I've never used, and then I'm gonna generate a temporary one, and I'm gonna throw it right here. So that's a key. And then I also want to throw in an organization ID, which is, let's see here, personal manage account settings. Here's my organization ID. Okay, now moment of truth. Can we actually make this work? Let's see. I'm gonna put a breakpoint in here, and then I'm gonna debug this. Something gotta blow up. We'll see. It failed. And what's the exception? It's throwing invalid completion exception, right? And then underneath that, saying bad request. That's the same problem, Brian. It's saying logit bias none is not of type object. Right?
I thought we initialized that to an empty dictionary.
I thought the same too. Let's find out. Well, that's the beauty of it. We're kind of stitching everything together. So now we get to see what things really look like, right? So let's go all the way. So this is going to give you an external completion response. So that means that this completion gets mapped into an external completion request, right? So I'm going to put a breakpoint in here. I'm going to go back to this guy, and I'm going to debug, and let's find out what happens. Here we go. So what's this request actually look like? Add the watch. This is DaVinci. Prompt has two. What was the expectation that the logit bias to have some value in it, right?
Yeah, there's no default properties at all in any of them.
Do you know why it lost it? Because we assigned values. We did actual value assignment, right? It needs to be null or a set of valid logic values. Of valid logic values, yeah. So
And
So,
until we fix RESTful sense, it has to be a set of values. Yeah.
right. So what is this guy? What goes inside this guy? Just a dictionary?
An empty dictionary. Yeah.
Let's do that just now, like that. Is there anything else we need to add? Let's see.
It'll complain about all the other ones.
It will, wouldn't it? Let's see.
Yeah.
I don't need this anymore. Yep, you're not wrong. So this is basically complaining now. It's saying uh, none is not set of type string user. So what's the default for user? Did you just make it like an empty string or?
String empty. Yeah.
Okay, an empty string. Okay. How many are they? Let's see. If I go back to
I can't
the
remember where I had them.
completions, I know where they are. They're in the models, right? And then under externals, there's external requests. So you had for the prompt, we already took care of the prompt, and then you made suffix null. It's already null, so we don't care. We don't even need that, right? And then max, huh?
Yeah, max tokens. Yeah, sorry, I was just doing what you were doing, reading them out.
Yeah. So let me just do this. I'm gonna split this here. And then I'm gonna go here and say, okay, give me these.
So for the listeners, what we're going to do here is we're going to actually put in the defaults, but in the future, the library we're using doesn't handle null values being posted. So we're going to we're fixing the library so it'll not post null values, and then that'll keep the API happy.
Yeah, it's good that you know about these, but you shouldn't have to fill each and every one of them. That's really annoying, right? False 0 and 0 personal penalty. Personal penalty. I mean, these will come in as 0 automatically. And then best of 1. And then we already initialize. Yeah, that should be enough. Let's see. No, not yet. It's saying you requested a length 0 completion, but did not specify log props parameter to see. Okay, so let's see, log probabilities. What did you set the value for this as? Let's see. Is it external completion requests? Log probabilities. Where is that, Brian? There it is. You just set it as null, right? Why does it care? Null. Unless the library is not even converting that to null, that would be interesting. Nope, something else is going on. Length 0 specify log props parameter to C. So we requested length 0 completion. Where did we specify length at all? Let's see here. Request length. You see length in here? I don't see length. Let's see. Max tokens 16. Oh, I didn't set max tokens. Does this matter?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, really? Okay. Usually I set it like, I don't know, like 400 or something. But let's just see.
I think we're going from max of 4,000 to 20,000 with 4, I believe.
There you go. That works. Now it works, but does it work? Let's see. So you won't see the quick watch. It has to be an add watch in there. And then the results, and then I should have a response. And under response, I have choices. And under choices, I should have answers. Here's robot hi. Hi there, glad to meet you. Right? And then the other one is just the goal of AI is to enable computers to think, understand, and perform tasks independently. So the dependency injection and all that stuff that we did, it works. Now, question for the group, we can release that today as alpha. That works, right? But we're not going to be able to release this with this name because this is going to be annoying for a lot of people. What's a better name for this guy? Should we call it OpenAI client? Is this better?
Should we be using the word OpenAI? Are we always going to be using OpenAI?
That's a good question. For this library, it's just a layer on top of OpenAI, but there's another SPAL library that's going to sit in front of that will be working with Azure and Meta and all that. But this specifically for OpenAI. So is there a better name for it? Maybe OpenAI client? Would that work?
Standard OpenAI.
Standardized OpenAI?
Standard OpenAI.
Do I call it OpenAI Net? That's really crappy. OpenAI client. No?
Maybe we should ask it what it wants to be called.
You know what, Parker? Don't test my crazy because I will do it. Here, fine. I'll do it. That's the only way. I mean, if OpenAI, if ChatGPT did anything for humanity, it just kind of saved humanity from having to think about things, Just let's just do it. I want to use 4, so it's like the best one, right? I am building a .NET library to enable engineers to interact and utilize OpenAI API. What should the class name be for the client that will allow this interaction? We still got some brains. I mean, we're not far off.
We're not redundant yet.
We're not redundant yet. I mean, or maybe we are because it already got the answer that we were thinking about. I'll just call it, but in all honesty, okay, joking aside, to be consistent, since we say students controller, teachers controller, and we said clients and we said completions clients and I completions, good catch. I completions client. We should also call this I OpenAI client like this, and that will be OpenAI client like that. Okay, now the other thing I want to press on though is that we need this guy to be up in here in the interface. Otherwise, what's the point of this interface? This is a public interface, right? And I want to be able to kind of add that in there. There's Control KE like that. And then this guy should be happy because I implemented that. See, if I remove this guy.
You left a stray S on that previous file.
I left what?
A stray character on that. See that S?
Oh yeah.
Yep.
What the heck is that? Typing too fast, I guess. So, okay, OpenAI client. The last thing I want to do here, just to kind of, I'm gonna fat arrow this guy. This is a good library. You can use this today, literally. I think I'm happy with how this looks for now. Mabruk, feel free to go in and kind of clean it up the crazy way you want to do it. I'm game. I don't mind. Just do what you think is right. Should we move these properties to the top? Maybe under the, I don't have really a preference here, but I think setting them at the very bottom here is kind of weird.
I like
they're gonna either go at the very top or at the bottom. At the bottom, okay. We're gonna make it at the bottom.
But we have private methods here.
I did. Thanks, Rami. I just removed it. Rami's like, remember to remove your API key, dude. And I was like, yeah, I got it. So hey, I learned something out of it. I went on social media and I told people, hey guys, actually, if you commit your keys, your API keys to GitHub in a public library, they're gonna send you an email and tell you, hey, we rotated the keys for you. So that's really neat. That's really, really sweet. I'm sorry, Elbik, you were saying something. What did you say?
Yeah, we have private methods that should go down of the public properties, I guess.
Good. Yes. Yeah, keep bringing these awesome things. So that's Where am I? Oh, OpenAI. You mean in here?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so that will go up here then.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Mhm.
Okay. That's it. That's a library. So let's see here. And I don't know what these imports are. I hope they're not one of these fun, weird things that the new .NET implementation does. But and also, so this is Rami. I already took care of this. And then Mabruk says method accessor, should it be public? Which method? Which method, Mabruk? I'll wait for his answer. Okay, people, this is a test-driven standardized library. Now, the next step, we're not done yet, really. We still need an acceptance test, and we still need excuse me, an acceptance test, and still need an integrations test. And the integration test is the one that I just did right now, but we need to write it proper. We need to write it in a proper way. So that'll be the next session. We write the acceptance, we write the integrations. Hopefully by this time we have RESTful Sense in a good place. So once RESTful Sense is good, we pull in the new library from the new version from RESTful Sense, and we write these two implementations. I'm going to show you how amazing you can use this cool library called WireMock. So we're pretending that there's an OpenAI API sitting behind the scene, but there's nothing in there. Okay, and then we're gonna also do the integration test, which is actually calling OpenAI. And how can you filter these tests in the pipeline? Because if you write a test, an integration test that's actually calling the API, that means every run will cost you money, right? So how do you filter in your pipeline the tests that are not supposed to be running every time in the pipeline? So you're gonna have a development pipeline and a release pipeline, and that release pipeline really needs to hit the API and come back. But you don't run that every time with every pull request. I have a lot of tricks for you. That's what I'm trying to say. A lot of tricks, right? Um, Mabruk says the interface of OpenAI, just before I wrap up, OpenAI client. Oh yeah, we don't need this to be public. Good catch. Thank you. Okay, I think we're okay. Any comments, questions, concerns?
Shall we just publish the alpha version now?
Oh, you want to publish it without tests? That's scary.
Oh, oh, I see. I see.
I mean, ideally, unit tests should be sufficient, but I'm afraid that, people, thank you, Mabruk. I'm afraid that people will kind of undervalue the importance of these acceptance tests. But we also can't release right now until Brian pushes his fixed RESTful
Oh,
sense, because I want to give people
mhm.
a really good, or do we give people an alpha release? I don't know. Fine. We need to find an icon for the library too. We don't have an icon, right? So, okay, let's do this. Clients,
Mid journey.
um, the I will ask the community about their opinions in a second, but this is OpenAI for completions. So this is that client. I already initialized that client. See how fast this was? That's really, really fast. And if I'm not talking too much, we would have been done with this in like 20 minutes. But we have to talk, right? Otherwise, what's the point? The beautiful thing about these sessions now is that the people that, saw this, you saw what it's like to build things end to end. I mean, we still need the integration acceptances, but this is the end to end. This is how you build one capability. However, completion still has a lot of things. There's fine tuning models and a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff that we need to do. Don't celebrate early. Okay. What I want from the community is that please pull this source code and try to run it and see. By the way, just so you guys know, Justin Odin Doll, this guy actually has a library. Like, he's talking from experience. He actually did build a .NET library for OpenAI. So when he's telling me, "Hey, be careful with this. You're doing this," it's coming from experience. He's not just looking at a screen. Just for the people watching, if you want to take a look at his library, Odin Doll. Why can I not find you, brother? I know you exist. I know you're real. Ju Justin. What's your GitHub, bro? he should give us his link. Give us your GitHub link for the required properties model and prompt it. Prompt is it not best to add the constructor? It's clear to the consumer what's required. But sometimes they are required and sometimes they're not. That's the problem, Justin. It depends. You said that yourself, right? Do you remember? Let's see, Jodin Doll. And I'll tell you a really nice thing about this in a second, but here he is. I think that's him. Look, this guy is not just talking. He went and built actually a library called OpenAI.net months and months before we even thought about it. The fact that he's here with us, helping us build the library with his experience shows you how amazing software engineers are. They're like, fine, I built a library, but I'm going to help these guys build one too. That's pretty neat. So the question here about, passing values through the constructor. I need to think about this one a little bit because we're trying to build something called anemic models. And anemic models, they don't have constructors. Ideally, to be honest with you, Justin, we shouldn't be using models as data carriers. We should be using structs. Okay. Now, the other thing is, Elbic, we need to open up an issue that we need to create a struct for the model types, just so people understand. The model type that I'm talking about, you see how I had to go and tell Brian, oh, Brian, what is the model name and all that kind of nonsense? We shouldn't be giving engineers that kind of experience. We should go like normal people, and in the completions in here, we should go create a class. That class is actually a struct. Is there a type struct in here? They don't give you that, do they? And then we should call it a completion models. Watch this. And this guy's a struct, right? Look how is that struct going to look like. We're going to go here and say, oh, this struct here is a string. And that string is type DaVinci, whatever, V3. And then I'm going to do V2. And then I'm going to do Babbage. And then I'm going to do Ada and all these folks. By the way, Babbage, I think, was Ada's teacher or something like that. So there's some history there. But anyway, you can actually add in these weird looking values in there, like this. And when people are trying to create a model, let me just do this. I think it's public static or something like that. Yeah, something like that. Here you go. I always, when I type static, it writes string, like they do this. Bear with me. I know there's a lot of comments. So instead of that crazy stuff that I was doing earlier, we should be just be going and saying, hey, if I have a function in here, and this function is trying to instantiate a completion model. So if I go here and say var completion equal new completion like this, and I have a request in here, and this is a completion request, we shouldn't tell people, oh, go look for the thing. It should just do this for me. See how beautiful this is? The only problem with that, what's the problem with that? You're going to have to keep up with these guys because they're going crazy. People are just throwing money at them, right? So they're going and they're creating new models every day, especially that you will also create your own model, and that model is not going to be part of a struct. But the beautiful thing about these structs is that you can just do this, or you can add in your own model in here. No problem. That's much better engineering experience than telling people, oh, go ahead. And the downside of it is that it's not like enums. People will not know to go do completion models like this. Like, it's not going to pop up the option for you.
If you made the struct static, it would be.
If I made the struct static? Really? Like internal static struct like this?
Yeah.
How? What do you
If
mean?
you did, well, I know if you do it as a class, I've done this with a class before. When you do static properties, you can just do the class name dot, like change it to a static class. I know you've done
static. Okay, static class.
Yep.
Like this.
Yep. And now you can go down to where you got, instead of new completion models, you can just write completion models.davinci 3.
Yeah, but Brian, that's still okay. Let's just go back here. That where is the file? Oh, there this time. You mean
Yeah.
just like this?
Yeah.
But that still is not gonna get like it's not gonna give me the autocomplete.
Yeah, like IntelliSense, right?
Uh-huh.
Just as in
It's
enum.
it's a same problem. I want it to be like enums.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't know how to solve this problem. So if anyone in the community knows how to do this, I'd be very grateful. It needs to be open, like a string, but it also needs to be something that I can get. I know there's a solution for it. I just can't remember off the top of my head right now. So what does Justin say? Justin says, what's your thoughts on mutation test with Striker? Would be curious to see the results on the library you have built. I have no idea what that is, Justin. If you want to take a jab at it, if you want to join us, and tell us what that is. I know about mutation tests. I never used Striker before. So if you want to teach us and share your amazing experience, again, like I said to you, this guy could just say, screw these guys. I already built a library. He's here, right? So I'm very grateful for that.
So regarding this, some help to know that there is such class, I can just think of the, comments above the property. So that's a brute force way, but
Yeah.
this is an option.
So the folks in Azure did something very weird. They basically went and said, if you want to specify a .NET version in your project when you're doing provisioning, right? They did something very weird. Let me show you what they did. Let me just find a project for it because I know maybe get file core. Do we have infrastructure for get file, Elbic? Do you know?
We should.
Let's do it. Let's go up in here. Look at what Azure folks did. Okay, people are gonna freak out. This is a huge project, but if you look at again, so if you look at the services brokers, clouds, we provision our infrastructure through C#2. We don't use any of that stuff so maybe I think it's in web app services. Yeah, there it is. So look what they did here. Do you see this net framework parse whatever?
Mm-hmm.
If you don't do that, watch this. They kind of give you an autocomplete, I think. Yeah, net framework version dot, and you can either select an existing value or you can parse one that is not available. What's the problem with that? It still doesn't give you the freaking autocomplete. So unless you you specify a particular type and underneath do some magic, you're still gonna get a bad engineering experience. You're gonna have to work really hard on training and documentation. And we know that engineers don't read that. Unless your code is telling the story and intuitively, this is what we're going for. We may as well just use any other library out there. We're going for quality. That's a problem for the community. If someone out there can solve this, I'll give you $25 Amazon gift card. By the time I'm done with this project, I'm just going to throw away like $3,000 or something. But it's totally worth it. I'm telling you right now, these are good people. What does Justin say? He says, for some other things, I have used enums with attributes that contain the string value. Then when serializing, you grab the string value. If you have an example for this, I'd be very grateful, Justin. This is a great problem to solve. I should call my buddy Mendelssohn. He could solve that problem, but there's so many people. I'm putting it out there and I'm saying, solve this problem, reach out to me. If I like the solution, give me your email, I'll give you 25 bucks. Okay, so let's go back to the original thing, not to take away from the amazing milestone that we just achieved. If I go back here, so this is Justin's, and I hope I'm saying your name right. I really hope so. This is his repository. Go take a look at the work that he already did months and months ago. before we started any of this. He already have everything, coverage and NuGet package. He already have the build, how many visitors, he has the license and he has this mutation score. Maybe that's what he was talking about earlier. Striker dashboard. What the heck is that? All files extend. Oh, dude, you're gonna have to teach us about that stuff. You know a lot of new cool things that we don't know much about. So definitely teach us about your magic. So he already has the library, right? The only difference is that we're trying to build something according to certain principles and guidelines. Again, not putting down anyone's work. I'm just trying to say why we're doing what we're doing. That was like the very first question that we asked. So going back to open.net, OpenAI.net, here's a PR. Clients OpenAI for completions. We should be good to go on this one. What I want from the community is just to try to test it. Like take that library before we publish it in the next session, maybe Monday, maybe over the weekend, and tell us. So this is OpenAI client that guy's done. I should have put the issue name in there. Now we just need acceptance and integrations. And even that one is done as well. Look how we cleaned up so fast. Okay.
I'm going to raise an issue about restructuring the models folder. So it's just a minor one. It's going to be a code rub.
Yes, please. I appreciate that.
And I have created the issue for struct.
If someone can give me an answer on this, I swear to God, I'll give you 25 bucks. Maybe even more, because that's a problem that I don't know how to solve. And if you can solve this, I'd be very, very, very grateful for you. All right. Thank you all for joining in today. This is a huge milestone. We have a thing that works, right? So let's keep that going, and then hopefully, we will continue to kind of share knowledge and share experiences. I could just show you a couple of tricks, but if I show you the trick within a project that you're building end to end, that's where you actually gain the best experience and the best value. Again, very grateful, Elvic, Kailu, Brian, and the standard community, and Justin, and Mabruk, and Rami, and all the amazing people that keep kind of pushing code, and the Uzbek community, and all these people. Thank you all so much. I'll see you again, maybe over the weekend, maybe Monday for sure. We'll see how that goes, and I appreciate you all. Take care. Have a good night, good morning, and good afternoon. Feels like the Truman Show here, just saying these things. Take care. Thank you, guys.